Kirsten Hedegaard, Assistant Professor at Loyola University Chicago and Director of the Eco Voice Project. For those of you interested in my work at the Eco Voice Project, I encourage you to attend my presentation later at 4:30, where I will be talking about this non-for-profit organization. But in the meantime, we have a wonderful panel, and I'd like to give everyone we have assembled here a chance to share their work. We have a diverse cohort of musicians to discuss the many ways in which music is intersecting with climate activism. From the moving climate stories being produced by Jason Davis, to the enlivening folk music of Luke Wallace, and so many other musical things that Luke is doing, and the grassroots community singing by the labor chorus, to Anne Harley's commissioning work that is transforming the traditional concert hall. Today's panel will undoubtedly inspire hope in all of us assembled here. Before I introduce the panelists, I'd like to set the stage by sharing this quote from William Roy's book, Red, Whites, and Blues. The social impact of music happens not only through a common understanding of the discourse around it, but also through the experience of simultaneous. The mutual synchronizing of sonic and bodily experiences creates a bond that is pre-communicative and perhaps deeper than shared conscious meaning. This can happen through the interaction of composers and performers, performers and performers, performers and listeners, and listeners and listeners. The more involved a person is in doing music, whether in composing, performing, or listening, the tighter the bond is. Music, these are my words, music is powerful, an energetic force, and when used creatively, thoughtfully, and strategically, can be one of the most effective communication tools at our disposal. To get started, I've asked each panelist to spend a few minutes introducing their work, and I am very pleased to welcome Jason Davis, who is going to talk about his Climate Stories project.
Great, thank you, Kirsten. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Great, thanks again. So I'm Jason Davis. I'm the director of Climate Stories Project, and I'm a assistant professor at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. Soon to start a job at Oregon State, so I'll be joining you all on the West Coast this winter, which is exciting. So I see you guys are controlling the slides, correct? Or is that up to me?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay, great. So just a brief introduction about my background. So I have a kind of unusual background in ecology and music. My doctorate is in music from McGill University. And I have a master's degree in ecology and conservation from University of Florida. So in addition to my academic work, I've been working on this project called Climate Stories Project for quite a number of years now. I think we're in 11th year. And we do all kinds of work, including climate storytelling workshops, a Climate Stories Ambassadors Initiative, which is open to anyone in the world. And I encourage you to visit our website, climatestoriesproject.org, to learn more about Climate Stories Project. There's a link there if you want to sign up for the Ambassadors Initiative, which is a way to learn about climate storytelling. It's all online, it's free. So you learn how to tell your climate story and you learn how to interview other people. And it's a great way to connect with people from all walks of life, all around the world around climate storytelling. But this panel is about music, so we're going to focus on my work, all of our work, combining climate change and music. So I think we can jump to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, well, as I said, we're going to talk about Climate Stories music, so we can forge ahead. So great. So yeah, I'll just jump into the excerpt of a piece I'm going to share with y'all today. So the genesis of this piece is when I was working in a small Western Inuit community in Shishmaref, Alaska, which is on the west coast of Alaska on the Bering Sea. It's a small barrier island, and as you can see from the map here, it's very exposed to the ocean. They're really at ground zero for climate change, primarily because they've lost a lot of sea ice, which used to surround the village and protect the village from storms. With rising temperatures and rising sea levels, that ice is pretty much gone. So it's very much under the gun with erosion and damage from the storms. So it's gotten to the point where the village actually voted to relocate from this little barrier island onto the mainland. So next slide. Yep, and you can just see some of the severe erosion that's happened over the years due to the waves coming up and battering the shoreline. So I visited Shishmaref a number of years ago. I worked with high school students in the local high school, and we talked about climate storytelling. Their job was to go out and interview their relatives, like their aunts and uncles, their parents, their grandparents, about climate change and about the local impacts of climate change. My job was just to kind of facilitate the workshops about climate storytelling, about interviewing skills, video skills, and so forth. But really the students were doing most of the work. So I was really up to them to be the leaders on this climate storytelling project in Shishmaref. Next slide. So I did do a few of my own interviews. One of them is with this gentleman named John Sinek, who is an Inupiat elder who's lived in Shishmaref his whole life. And it has a wealth of detail to talk about climate change on a really detailed level. So we talked about all kinds of interesting stuff, from changes in wind direction, changes in fish populations. And the thing that really got my attention was he actually talked about sound. And he mentioned that when he was younger, he remembered it was so cold and so dry that the snow made like a sharp, crunchy sound when people walked through the snow. But because of warming temperatures, that sound has actually changed. So that, as a musician, that really got my attention as an amazing way to discuss or describe climate change in terms of sound. So part of my work has been taking voice recordings of people talking about climate change and setting them to music with permission, of course. But really, I like to focus on these really specific details about climate stories and sensory images and anecdotes. So John Sinek's story really caught my attention. So why don't we listen to his interview first? Hopefully the sound's working.
So a little bit about our village here. Back when I was young, we have always had north wind all the time, and we would have blizzards and cold north winds for a good month. But after that, we would have real nice weathers for at least a month or over a month after that, where people can go out and hunt and get ice for drinking water. And it would be like that for a long time. And then when the snow gets so cold and dry that you can hear people walking outside. You could hear their footsteps outside because you can hear the crunch real easy on the snow. Nowadays, it doesn't get that hard anymore where you can hear people walking past. The snow doesn't get that hard dry anymore like it used to.
So like I said, just a really amazing story about climate change and something really unexpected. So for me, using the sensory images and sound to describe climate change is quite compelling. So next slide, please. So part of my work has been making music using voice excerpts or voice recordings from these interviews. And for me, it's a really exciting way to communicate climate change through both storytelling and music. You know, as we all know, music has tremendous emotional power, and stories do as well. So for me, this combination of climate storytelling and music is really what I've focused on, and hopefully you find it compelling as well. So this piece also uses a little bit of Inuit music, a technique called throat singing, which I'm not going to replicate right now because I'll deeply embarrass myself. But if you're interested, please visit, or please go to YouTube and Google or search for Inuit throat singing, and you'll hear some pretty amazing sounds. Let's have a listen to part of this piece, Footsteps in Snow.
when I was young. When I was young. We have always had north wind. We have always had north wind all the time. And we would have blizzards. And we would have blizzards. And cold north winds for a good month. Cold north winds for a good month. And it would be like that for a long time. And it would be like that for a long time. But after that, the snow gets so cold. The snow gets so cold. That you can hear people walking outside. You could hear their footsteps outside. Nowadays, it doesn't get that hard anymore where you can hear people walking past. The snow doesn't get that hard dry anymore like it used to.
Great, so there's my piece, Footsteps in Snow, an excerpt. If you want to hear more, it's at the website, climatestoriesproject.org or climatemusic.net. Thanks, Kirsten and Elise and UBC. It's great to be here. Looking forward to everyone else's presentation.
Thank you so much, Jason, and we look forward to hearing from you later in the panel. In the meantime, it is my pleasure to introduce Barb Coward and Bill Bargeman from the Labor Chorus, and they're going to give us a little music and an introduction to their work.
You have.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. One foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. One foot in front of the other and lead with love. This earth needs help. Don't you despair. Don't you despair. Step up the fight and show you can. And show you can. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. One foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. One foot in front of the other and lead with love. The sun and wind are all we need. Are all we need. No gas and oil. No gas and oil. Let's go. Let's go. Gotta put one foot front of the other, and lead with love. 1 foot in front of the other, and lead with love. We got to go 1 foot in front of the other, and lead with love. 1 foot in front of the other, and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. We're standing strong. We're standing strong. The fight is now. The fight is now. It won't be long. It won't be long. Put 1 foot in front of the other, and lead with love. 1 foot in front of the other, and lead with love. Put 1 foot in front of the other, and lead with love. 1 foot in front of the other, and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love.
Last time.
And lead with love.
Thank you. Those were the resistors, who are members of the Left Labor Chorus. And the example of what they sing is kind of what we do. It's a simple song, call and response that audiences can grab onto and stop being an audience and start being participants. I'm really glad to see that most of you have now picked up your song sheets and you're not just sitting on it. That's great. Left Coast Labor Chorus uses music to engage in activism in the streets, on picket lines, at demonstrations and rallies, encouraging people to participate, to sing. We're part of a long tradition of using songs to activate, from Joe Hill and the Wobblies, the turn of the last century, Pete Seeger, the songs of the United States Civil Rights Movement and the South African anti-apartheid movement. We use music to build unity, because when individuals sing together, there is unity. To build intersectional solidarity by connecting with other struggles, and to break down isolation when people join their voices together. We're a community choir of untrained singers whose mission is to use music to create social change. We're mostly elders with roots in the labor movement, peace, environmental, feminist, and anti-racism movements. Much of our repertoire is made up of simple songs that people know, or tunes that they can catch quickly. And then we zipper in appropriate lyrics depending upon the situation. And you'll hear zippered lyrics in the other things that the resistors will be doing. So that's who we are, and that's what we do. We're a Vancouver-based group. On the back of your thing is a little contact thing. If you like what you're doing here, please contact us.
Thank you so much. And Barb, before we move on to introducing Anne Harley, just want to make sure that we'll hear from you again later, yes? Wonderful. So our next guest comes to us from Scripps College. Anne Harley is a professor of music at Scripps, a brilliant soprano, and has done a ton of commissioning of new works from composers. Anne, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm very, very happy to be virtually in British Columbia, having been born in Canada myself. But I, by way of biography, moved to the States for some of my education and ended up staying there. I have degrees in vocal performance and historical performance, and I've been performing and commissioning from Scripps College, which is a traditionally women's college, historically women's college in Los Angeles, for about the past 15 years. And over the last, I don't know, I think it's probably about 10 years, it became clear to me that the music that I commission has to have some sort of activist impact on my students and also on audiences in terms of how it activates people to work towards more environmental sustainability. So if we could advance to the first slide, Kirsten. Okay. So I guess that my main takeaway from working in this area is that the medium of music is extremely powerful for messages of all kinds. But also the way in which it actually physically materializes on stage or in communities makes it even more powerful. So this medium is the message is, of course, stolen from Marshall McLuhan, our compatriot, with the idea that the content of the songs is not, in many cases, the most impactful. And that is, in fact, what I have found. I've found that the most impactful is the co-presence, co-creation, collaboration leading up to the commission, the conversations, difficult sometimes around the composition, the process of, in some cases, inviting people from places that are strange and wonderful and new to the students, for example, Malaysia, and the conversations that happen before and after the actual performance. In other words, the performance itself takes a very short amount of time and leaves a kind of signature on the internet of a recording. But it's really the human components of coming together and creating, and then hopefully acting differently. And the most transformed are often the ones who are performing. And that takes me to my next slide. So I'm convinced that environmental problems are human created, that I mean, we can fix some of them with technology, but there is something called techno-optimism, which I think is not leading us in the right way all the time. I think there needs to be a massive spiritual and environmental movement, and indeed there is one underway. And part of the reason why I feel we've been so we have been so impotent to change our ways is that we are inculcated into a kind of habit of consumption. It's also in our concert halls, in that, sorry, my dog is here, in that we pay for an experience. We have this experience and then oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's going bonkers. So we pay for an experience like going to a concert, and then if we're done with it. And we may carry a memory, but a lot of the time we don't actually act on the material that has been in that transmitted in that music. And so we have not actually been very good either at rationally changing the destructive behaviors that as humans we know is going to lead to problems down the road. But we somehow have not been rationally able to decide logically to do that. And so this is where music comes in. And I believe the kind of, it's an irrational intervention in the sense that it's non-rational in the most positive sense. It's trying to get people by music to engage non-rationally with components of their traditions and their selves that verge on the spiritual, if they are not in fact spiritual, outright spiritual. So can we go forward? There is a counter argument to the civil activism through singing and music from Malcolm X. He was convinced that this was just a way to divert the energy of collective anger away from action. And he, in his famous speech, The Ballot or the Bullet, he discouraged people from engaging in this singing. So my question to all of you is, we enjoy the music, we enjoy the singing, but is it actually creating an action at the end of the performance? Or is it simply creating a catharsis, an emotional cleansing of our disturbance, which then allows us to go home and sleep better without acting? So if we are going to engage in music like this, I think we have to be really careful to make sure that there is an activist takeaway. And I hope that everybody here doesn't need convincing that that's necessary. But there is political music, and you know, any music could be thought of as political in a sense. But activist music is music to me that that compels someone to act, or that you come away from that experience with a clear idea of what your action is, and you go and act. Next slide, please. So all of these experiences in music, as Kirsten hinted at, I think, are transformative for the audience, perhaps, through something called narrative transport and shared experience, shared community. But I think if you are musicians, you by far the more powerful experience is the one that the actual musicians are having. They are both listening and creating, and perhaps have also memorized the material, and they are leading in a sense, or, you know, it sort of verges on teaching in a way. And so just as we know in physical therapy for, say, Alzheimer's patients, that active music making is more powerful for transformation in the brain of Alzheimer's patients. We know that for music, that's also the case. Sorry, I'm at a rest stop by a door because they won't let my dog inside. So it's obvious to me, at least, and I hope, I can't see any of you if you're nodding or not, but that those experiences where, even if it's not a terribly difficult kind of action that the audience takes, like clapping along or singing along, those are moments where, oh, hello.
Hello. I'm moving ahead in preparation for Luke's performance in a moment.
Could you go back to a slide before, or should I?
No, I think we're going to, just to keep our panel moving on, we're going to come back to the Yi piece, if that's okay with you.
Okay, I can just wrap up now.
Okay, and then we'll come back to that musical example.
Okay, thank you. That is all.
Thank you so much, Anne, and we'll look forward to coming back and hearing a little bit about Forest Threnody, this amazing piece that was performed at Scripps a few years ago. But our next panelist, Luke Wallace, some of you had a chance to work with him yesterday in our pre-conference institute, and we're so happy to have Luke here to talk about his work and to share some more live music with us. Welcome, Luke Wallace.
Okay, well, hey, Anne, I don't know if you can hear me. Thanks for that. That was awesome. And, you know, a lot of that rings true for me. I'm glad I got to go forth in the introductions because I can just riff and didn't have a plan. So, you know, I live this like sort of like parallel experiences, these two parallel experiences, and Anne described both of them. One of them is that, you know, I was playing at a music festival in Halifax a few weeks ago, and I couldn't help but feel like that me getting up on stage and singing even these bold, you know, the bolder side of my songs, I call them the salty side of my songs, was just, I just become a caricature for those in the audience, and actually it was in a way disempowering for them, because it kind of has that energy of like, oh good, well that sort of slot of society is filled, the kind of radical folk singer thing, he's saying it, and we can come here and sing along in a safe space of a folk festival, and we'll just kind of keep going, was the vibe that I get occasionally. And it's, I'm aware of it. And the counter to that is that we've all been to concerts in our lives. Most of us, I think, have been to concerts in our lives that completely changed our lives, completely changed the trajectory of our path. And I've been, feels like almost every show that I go to now changes who I am as a person and what I think the world needs and what I'm here to do. And I'll never forget standing at Thunderbird Stadium in the pouring rain when I was in 9th grade and seeing Radiohead play. My favorite band in the whole world. And it was an unbelievable concert. And and the boldness of their lyrics and just the energy that they put, it absolutely 100% transformed my life and my trajectory. And I think has allowed me to then pass that transformation on to other people. And we're all doing that with each other all the time. So yeah, just it's a really interesting dance that we do as musicians in not placating or sort of comforting people too much, but so I'm going to sing you, I think I'll probably get one song now, one song later, and I want to show you the scope of what I do. So I'm going to sing you a salty song to start. Is that okay? And then I promise I'll come back and do something sweet. Now I just want you to explore how they make you feel or whatever. So this is a song called, riffed off a Stompin' Tom Connor song called The Good Old Hockey Game. You know that song? So you know, I am a big sports fan. I love sports. I watch them all the time. And also the entire NHL is complicit in massive money laundering and greenwashing and oil and gas investment. Almost every owner of every team in Canada is pumping huge money into oil and gas right now. And I mean, half the teams are named after oil and gas. And it's something we should probably talk about. So this song comes out in in 2 months, and it's a very poke the bear kind of song, and I expect to get some flack for it. And it's a song called The Good Old Petrol Game. And you'll sing along with me, you'll get the chorus. Obviously it's kind of satirical, so you don't have to sing it enthusiastically in that way. You can sing it ironically, it's good, you know? All right. Hello out there, it's in the air, it's petrol night tonight. The money goes where the oil flows. Goodbye to all the ice. The temperature jumps another hump. The scientist goes insane. No one cares, life ain't fair. It's a good old petrol game. Whoa, the good old petrol game. It's the best game you can name. And the best game you can name. It's a good old petrol game. Yeah. All right, welcome to the Anthropocene. Do the corporate dance, it's a game of chance while the glaciers melt away. And they grab our necks, cash their checks, distract us and delay. On life will cease with the bumblebees, all the homes go up in flames. And the man gets rich while you're in the ditch, it's the good old petrol game. Oh, the good old petrol game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old petrol game. All right, third period. You're from Canada to Africa, corporations run the show. And they let you vote just so you won't wonder where the money goes. And the antidote to this cosmic joke is to light the people's flame. And until we do, the world is screwed. It's the good old petrol game. Whoa, the good old petrol game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name. It's the good old petrol game. One more. Whoa, the good old petrol game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name. It's the good old petrol game.
Thank you so much, Luke, and we'll look forward to hearing from you also later with some more music. The next section of the panel will be in discussion format. So we've come up with 3 questions to discuss among the